with our oppressor, challenging the validity of the conditions under which we were forced to live. And we started winning. The Brown versus Topeka Board of Education decision, Montgomery bus boycott, voter registration drives, and in Africa, country after country was throwing off the shackles of colonialism. All these things contributed to a rising black consciousness that changed black people everywhere. It was a time of hope and inspiration and growing expectations. It was in this environment that BCN was born. This rising black consciousness reaches highest expression in the 1960s. Black pride and unity has never been higher before or since. For the first time, we said black is beautiful. I'm black and I'm proud. Ungawa, black power. Jesus, the black Messiah. Let the black nation rise. Something was different and you could feel it in the air. In 1 year, between 1967 and 1968, there were over 500 rebellions that broke out in the cities across America. These riots were clear indicators that black people were no longer going to accept the oppressive conditions that had been imposed on them for the last 100 years. Something had changed. The belief that there was nothing we could do to make a difference was broken. It was as if a spell we were under had been lifted. And white people wanted to know what happened to us. Why were we suddenly so rebellious? Why were we no longer afraid of them? Why was the threat of overt violence no longer an effective deterrent? To find the answer to these and other questions, President Johnson established the Kerner Commission in 1967 to examine the causes of civil disobedience. And after 7 months, the 11-member commission reported that the black community has become a self-conscious community, aware of its own group interests, and determined to serve them. They reported that overt violence is no longer an effective means of control. They also reported that the Negro population is imbued with a newfound spirit of racial pride and unity, and some are even prepared to give their lives in pursuit of power. The revolutionary Holy Spirit was sweeping the globe and inspired a black revolution, and the shrine in the Black Madonna was a spiritual home. It was in this environment that BCN was developed. Guided by the findings of the Kerner Commission report, the white power structures sought to find a new means of black control. Think tanks and research institutions determined that the black revolution was spiritual in nature. It gave black people a feeling of spiritual togetherness and willingness to sacrifice everything for the cause. So they got to work looking for a new means of control. They found a new means of control in a thing called game theory, a mathematical study of strategies dealing with competitive situations or predicting how people will interact in competition. Utilizing game theory, they sought to disrupt black unity by making black people competitors with each other. They reasoned that they could make us want to be rich rather than want to be free. They could control us because they had all the money. And if we're competing for money, we can't unify to seek power. This is when Richard Nixon began promoting black capitalism, a program that offered government assistance to black people seeking to establish black businesses. Corporate America developed affirmative action programs to extend economic opportunity to black people, taking them from the streets to the suites. The government-sponsored pacification programs offered grants and low-interest loans to community activists to establish educational programs, cultural programs, youth programs, sports programs, all to distract them from the struggle to change conditions. We live in dangerous times. America's at a great crossroads. We don't know what direction this thing is going to take. The last time we were in a similar position to today, it was at the end of Reconstruction in 1877. After a long period of progressive change after the Civil War, the white backlash to black advancement ushered in 100 years of Jim Crow. Today, there is an all-out coordinated effort to undo everything that has been done to create a free and equal pluralistic society. The noose is slowly tightening around our necks. The dominoes are falling right before our eyes. A systematic process is taking place right now. They are banning books. They're rejecting democracy. They're destroying public education. They're eliminating affirmative action. They're undermining voting rights. They're making it unconstitutional to have any program or policy to address the needs of a historically disadvantaged group. They're making abortion and contraception illegal while simultaneously eviscerating the social safety net that provides for people in need. In Project 2025, they plan to weaponize the Department of Justice to go after people, organizations, and institutions that advocate diversity or inclusion because they violate the rights of white people. These and other policies threaten to gradually create a new, updated version of Jim Crow in America. We will not see the cumulative effect of these policies this year or next year, but in 10 years, 2035 will look a lot like 1935 for black people. If that is true, then self-determination is the only road left for black people. People do not give up power. And we naively underestimate how diabolical white people can be when they feel they're losing. They plan to terrorize us back into submission. This is why we're placing such an emphasis on rethinking, unlearning, on cognitive flexibility, on calling for bold, persistent experimentation in every aspect of our program. This is why we are reimagining BCN, thinking it over, not one time, but all the time, making it a way of life to rethink it all the time. We seek to be firmly rooted in our past without being imprisoned by it. We seek to be guided by our core principles, but flexible enough to apply them in new and creative ways. We seek to use our creative intelligence to constantly strive for improved practices and better outcomes. We seek to be a learning organization, a community of lifelong learners that are dedicated to continual experimentation, adaptation, evolution, and improvement. We seek to engage the creative intelligence of our entire membership through participation on boards, ministries, online focus groups, programs, specializations, organizations, and institutions. We don't want passive members. We want our members to bring everything they got to all of those focus groups, all of those boards and ministries, and make your contribution based on your insight and ability. A lot of work has gone into this seminar by a whole lot of people, and we weren't even physically connected. We were online meeting. This is the fruit of a year of work. And it actually is an example of how the nation plans to function in the future, with everybody getting in where they fit in, and throwing their shoulder to the wheel where they can, making a contribution, giving their insight and their abilities wherever they can to move the ball.